The next and final one on this track by Aleksandr Bernadskii. He will be talking about the generative AI and how to do it with Bedrock. Please welcome.
Oh, good. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex. You can call me Sasha if you want to, and I'm just one more guy from AWS. And a little story to melt the ice in the beginning. So yesterday we were sitting with all the awesome guys and ladies from the user group, from our speakers, in the restaurant eating amazing Uzbek food. And we had a rule that those who said the word AI should drink shot of vodka. And everybody was super attentive to this one, and nobody said AI, nobody drank vodka in the end of the time. But today I just have to say to you lots of AI word. And probably if we still have this rule active, I don't know, tonight I will be deadly drunk. Then straight to the action. Amazon Bedrock, that's relatively new service from Amazon, which was introduced less than a year ago, I think. That's super easy to remember, specifically for those of you who like to sleep. It's a bedrock. And what's that in a really simple words? It's a managed library of GenAI models from Amazon and from our partners. And what does managed mean? Managed mean that these models are already hosted on AWS infrastructure. It's hosted in a highly available way with monitoring, with certain performance SLA, with the security in place. And basically, everything that customer that you need to do is to select the region, select the model, decide whether the model works good from out of the box or not, then customize it if needed, set the expected performance level, and call the API, and then that's it. It just works. Speaking about the list of the models which exist in the Bedrock, that's first of all models from Amazon. That's the Titan family. I'll show you separate slides for this one. And that's the models from number of our partners, and it's even open source model because basically Llama is the open source. Most of them are text-to-text model, but there's also a model from different modality, let's say Stability AI, famous for stable diffusion. That's text-to-image, image-to-image model. That's also Titan image generator for work with the image. You see that different models have different, let's say, properties. They are good for different use cases. And I would like specifically to talk with you about two families, two different kind of models, let's call it this way. First of them is the Claude family from our partner Anthropic. And why I decided to speak about Anthropic and the Claude. First of all, because Amazon believes in Anthropic. We heavily invest in the company. We help them to produce the newer generation of the model. And another thing that we do lots of GenAI stuff in the region with companies from Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and basically some other countries from the region as well. And one of the major questions which we have all the time is support of the local language, support of Kazakh language, Uzbek language, and all the others. And the Claude family, so far, the only family model which support local languages. Frankly speaking, I haven't tried Llama 3 yet because it's relatively new. Llama 2 failed with, let's say, Kazakh language. But Claude, definitely good at this one. I'll show you an example later with the Uzbek language. And as you can see, there are three different, let's call it types of flavors of the Claude 3 model. Based on the intelligence of the model, Haiku, Sonnet, and Opus. Haiku is, let's call it the least intelligent model, if the model can be least intelligent comparing to myself, for example. Yeah, and it's good for some lightweight cases, let's say text to SQL, perfect case for the Haiku. It answers you quickly, and text to SQL, not something super complicated. Sonnet, that's somehow intermediate model, good for open-ended questions, good for non-enterprise grade chatbots. And the Opus, the largest one, the most, let's say, tough and knowledgeable, So that's definitely a choice for the big enterprises when you want to build your awesome chatbot. Another family which I would like to talk about, another model types is the, something happened, yeah. Another model family is the Titan. That's quite obvious why I talk about it, because it's from Amazon. And as you can see here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 different models. First one, which has word embeddings in the end, that's a special type of the models, which basically do one thing. It takes the model and then transforms it into vector. Vector, if you remember from lineage algebra, that's the kind of row of numbers. And then you put this vector in the vector database, like OpenSearch, for example, and then you can do a vector search based on the similarity of the vectors. And that's one heavily used in a technique called RAG. I'll talk about it later. Then we have Titan text in a different variations. That's pretty much similar to the Claude, from least intelligent to the most intelligent model. Quite obvious that least intelligent is light, and the smartest one is premium. Then we have multi-model embeddings. That's also embeddings model, but some a little bit more complicated cases for search, recommendations, personalization. And in the end, image generator, that's the image to image, text to image model, which works with images. But what if you and your business somehow not satisfied with the model behavior, with the model answers out of the box? Then you can do something with this one. And the most simplest thing which you can do with the model if you're not satisfied, you can play with the prompt. And most of the people think that prompt is super easy stuff. Oh, we just change the ordering of the words, for example, and then it works, so we change the words. But in fact, it may be complicated because different models requires different prompt technique, and quite often models are even sensible for the ordering. If you put a context in the beginning of the question, if you put a context in the end of the question, and properly set it prompt, can dramatically change the performance of the model, based on my experience and based on experience which I heard from other people. Then, if the prompt engineering doesn't work for you, you can do retrieval augmentation generation, or so-called RAG. More about it on the next slide. And you can also tune your model. And when we're talking about the tuning and the Bedrock, and when I say tuning, I don't mean to train the model completely from scratch. That's too difficult, too heavy, too expensive. We're talking about tuning. And for the tuning, we have two types of technique. One we called fine-tuning, and another one we called continued pre-training. Within a couple of slides, you know more. So retrieval augment, so RAG, how it works. It's all about putting more context in your prompt. Of course, you can write a really long prompt and type everything by your hands, but it's just not effective. The more effective thing is to create knowledge base, put everything in the vector database, use embedding model, just like I told you minutes ago. And then, based on your prompt engine of the Bedrock, your code can go to a knowledge database and then pull from this knowledge base something very similar to your initial prompt and enrich your prompt, kind of augment your prompt, and then push this prompt with additional context from the knowledge base to the model, and the model will know more about something you would like to let it know. And the good thing that in the Bedrock, it's implemented in a quite easy way. You don't have to go explicitly and create your knowledge to create a vector database, let's say OpenSearch or whatever vector database you would like to use, and then integrate it with your model. With the Bedrock, it's all implemented that you just use the implicit Bedrock functionality. You just create the knowledge base within the Bedrock. You can do it through the Web Console. You can do it using the API. And then Bedrock does all the heavy lifting for you. It offers you to use OpenSearch serverless as a default option for the knowledge base. So you kind of first put the data in S3, let's say, then go to the Bedrock, say I would like to create a knowledge base. Bedrock will create the OpenSearch serverless instance for you. Then connect this OpenSearch serverless instance to your data in S3 and to your model in the Bedrock. And it's all done almost automatically. You just need to properly set up the certain parameters to let it work. But if you'd like to use some custom database, not open source, let's say any other, that's also possible to integrate it with a Bedrock. That just will be a little bit more complicated. If rack doesn't help you, or help you but not completely, and you still would like to fine-tune your model, then you'll have an option. First option, fine-tuning, another one, continued pre-training. You already knew it. And what's the difference? In fine-tuning, as a training data set, you use already, let's say, labeled data set. Let me give you an example for the better explanation. Let's say our customer is bank, and bank would like to classify service claims, or maybe classify calls from the call center, and they first transfer speech to text, and then would like to classify it based on the product classifier. And definitely model out of the box doesn't know about the product classifier, product catalog for the specific bank. And in order to let the model know about the product catalog, in order to let the model map certain, let's say, service claims to a certain product, you just push into the product, you just push into the model your data set when you explicitly mark that that's the name of this product, that's the name of that model, so on and so forth. And by this one, you're kind of train your model for a very specific task you would like this model to do. In our case, that was a classification. Another story, when you don't want a model to be trained for a specific task, you just want the model to know more about certain domain. Again, it may be product catalog with a product description. And you don't want to use it for the classification, you just want to make the model answers more consistent to raise the accuracy in a specific domain. In this case, you can, give the model just a plain text without any labeling. It may be just a PDF file. You use it, model kind of read it and educate itself in this domain. And that's what we call continuous pre-training. Even more, what you can do with the Bedrock, because initially when we think about the GenAI models, initially when we think about chatbots, we think that it's a source of information. We ask something from the model and then model gives us answer. But that's not everything which you can do with your, let's say, chatbots or with your models. Using the Bedrock, you can transform your model not only to the source of info, but also to a certain, let's say, operator, to a certain kind of robot, which can do actions for you. And for, and for this one, you can use the agents from the Bedrock. What is agent? The idea of each agent is pretty simple. So it's a special functionality within a Bedrock which connects your model to lambdas. Do you know about lambdas? Lambdas is a service. Yeah, I know that you know lambdas. You won the last game day. Oh, the previous game day was lambdas. Cheers. So the lambdas, that's the service in Amazon which allows you to run your code without any kind of heavy lifting for managing hardware, operational system. You just put the code and it just works. And this code can be literally everything. It means that your model can be connected to any kind of a logic. You just need to link certain prompts you push into the model to the certain type of actions. Example, again, from financial area. Let's say I have a chatbot and the customer using this chatbot to make a consultation to gain some info about mortgage. And after the customer received all the necessary information about the mortgage, he or she would like to get a call back from the manager from the bank. And using the chatbot, customer can just type in, call me back this date, this time, for example. And the agent linked to the model can go to a CRM system or whatever the customer uses as the working space for the manager and create a task here for the person. Person will see this task assigned to him and call the customer back. That's just one example for the agents. Even more. And this problem, which I will tell to you in a second, is quite, let's say, critical and popular. And I think most of you at least once heard about this one. That's when the company deployed a chatbot or model, whatever, and this chatbot become to act start to act rude, start to blame people, start to use explicit words, start to tell about, I don't know, violence, way of suicide, whatever. That's some critical example. It may be not so critical. Let's say most of the banks don't want chatbots to make investment advisement because it's too risky. And to limit the model output, typically customers would like to use certain filtering, or how we call it, guardrails. That's the special functionality within the Bedrock, which allows you to put content filters, stop words, stop topics, regular expression filtering on top of the model response. And by this, you ensure that the model behaves as it should without mentioning any kind of restricted or explicit topics. And continue on the topic of the security, which we started with the guardrails. Of course, that's super critical for the customers to keep their data safe, because data, as you heard many, many times, that's the main asset of the company. And I think you heard it already from the scene today from my colleague Anton, that we don't use your data, customer data, for training our model. And that's valid for any model in the Bedrock. Whatever you put in the Bedrock, we do not use it for model training, except you would like to make it use, except you would like to use it to create the custom model using fine-tuning or pre-training, as you already knew. But without your approval, that's not going to happen. Of course, Bedrock doesn't operate in a vacuum, in some empty space. It's fitted into AWS infrastructure in terms of network, in terms of security. It means that you can create secure Bedrock endpoints. You can provide access to certain people to a Bedrock, even to certain people to a certain model in the Bedrock. You can encrypt the data. You can encrypt even the model. And Bedrock also certified by all these honorable institutes mentioned in the below of my slide. And I think that was a little bit boring, right? To show you the slides about all this awesome service and GenAI capabilities. Let's watch something more funny. First of all, a little bit of architecture diagramming, architecture approach. First one, super easy one, when you just decide to use the model as it is, without any tricky technique, like fine-tuning, without chatbots, with the context, without retrieval augmentation. Just the plain call to the model, you just call it and you just return. Really good if you just would like to try. You never tried the Bedrock, you never tried, let's say, Cloud model, and you would like to have a taste how it is. So you can read about the API and do the API call in Python, let's say, pretty easy. But you can also use the UI, which we embed into Web Console. Just be aware, it's not for free, even if you use, we call it Playground in the console, you'll still be charged for the model usage. That's the video. I'll click play for the video. Unfortunately, I can set it to pause because I'm using clicker. So it will be maybe too fast, and you should be attentive if you want to. So that's the playground. That's the list of the libraries in the playground. And I will pick the Anthropic middle one, Claude 3 Sonnet. And here, as you can see, that's the chat playground. You can type something into interaction window. You can even play a little bit with the parameter of the model. Temperature, top P, top K, that's the parameter which adjusts the randomness of the answer of the model. And I asked the model, what are the most important dates in the history of Uzbekistan? Up to you to judge how model is relevant. I'm not the one to judge it. But at least it answers something relevant.
Looks pretty accurate.
Thanks a lot, thanks a lot. And then in Russian, those of you who understand Russian can also check this out. I think that's pretty much the same that it was in English. And now deadly trick. I apologize, I don't know Uzbek, that's why I had to use Amazon Translate. By the way, we have a service called Amazon Translate, if you didn't know before. And I'll translate the same into Uzbek and put the Uzbek question in the chat playground. So, yep, it's typing quite fast, but if you read fast, let me know how it is.
confirm.
Yeah, agree? Good? Okay. And it's also can remember the context. It can support the conversation, not only in English, not only in Russian, but also in Uzbek. I'll ask more. I'd like to know more about Amir Timur. And then the model will tell me more about Amir Timur. So you see, that's not only about IT now, it's also about history. We are super useful in our sessions. And remember, I told you that most of our models is text-to-text modality, but Claude, specifically Claude, and some other models can work with images as well. And now I will put an image in the prompt. That's the photo of the summer camp. Yeah, that's the summer camp. And I will ask the model, this time in English, what's that? What's on the picture? Yeah, and it says that it's mausoleum in Samarkand, and I suppose that is right. True? Good. So, and that's the playground which is available to all of you who have access to the Web Council. You can just open it. Bedrock is not available in every region, but if you pick, let's say, Oregon or West Virginia or Paris, you can go and play a little bit. Just remember that it's not for free. You saw the prices on the slide for about the Claude. It's something like less than 1.5 cents, if I remember correctly, for a single call of Opus. With the Sonnet, it's slightly cheaper. Yeah, going further. If you decide to create a chatbot, then you will need a slightly more complicated architecture rather than just a plain call. So first you need a Bedrock itself. You choose the model in a Bedrock. Then you need to prepare your documents. On the upper right corner, you put the document somewhere, let's say in the S3. Then you go back to the Bedrock and say, I want to create my knowledge base. I would like to create the knowledge base using the embedding model. Then you choose the embedding model. Embedding model transforms your text and the documents into vectors and then put it into the knowledge base. And then you just need to write down the logic of your chatbot. Typically, when the customers write the chatbot, they would like to create the chatbot which remembers the history of interactions, which do not lose the context. And for this one, kind of industry standard is the LangChain library in the Python. I'll show you code examples somehow later. And this logic using the LangChain looks into the model connected with the knowledge base. And when you type something in the chatbot window, then it goes through the API to the model. Then it's enriched with the context from the knowledge base, and then return all the answers with a history of your interactions. And it worked somehow like this. So as the knowledge base here, I used letter to stakeholders from the last year from our CEO, Andy Jassy. And obviously, that's Claude 3 as well. Claude 3 out of the box doesn't know who is CEO of Amazon. This model knows it from the knowledge base, which I provided to the model. I asked when did he start. In the letter, there is no date when Andy Jassy started to serve as the CEO, so the model answers that, well, I have no idea. Basically, that's the answer. And the next question is, what is our generative AI strategy? You see it started thinking. It works a little bit longer than before, but still, and there is also a possibility to change the behavior of how the model provides you the answer. It can stream the answer. Remember, in the previous video, the answer was shown row by row, and in this time it was shown as like a whole chunk of text. Oh, I apologize. I skipped it a little bit. Okay, then let's go to the next slide. So the next case is when you would like to use the agent. So we kind of raised the complexity here. You would like to create not only a chatbot for the data, you also would like to create some kind of operational chatbot. So here you need a Bedrock, you need an agent in a Bedrock, and you need a Lambda which can do certain stuff. You can use the Lambda to look into knowledge base. That's the most, let's say, obvious option. Then you can use Lambda to do some calculation, or you can use the Lambda and the agent connected to the Lambda to be integrated with your internal IT systems, which may be hosted even on-premise. And then based on the prompt in the chatbot, you decide what the agent will do. and when. And that's the example. The example here is about investments advice chatbot. So I use a database here as well. I put it into vector database as a rack. And the data in this database is the data from agency. That's the American agency which look after stock market and the data about stock market situation. So, and first thing that I ask for model to do is to just, sorry. Sorry. First thing. Yeah. First thing that I ask chatbot to do is to provide me a kind of summary of what's going on the market currently. It goes to the knowledge base using Lambda. First of all, it calls the Lambda, then it goes to the knowledge base and provide me reply. On the left, you can see a trace, what it's doing during the call. The call itself, quite, I would say, reasonable, at least as far as I can understand it. And if you need to debug it, you can look through the trace, or you can hide the trace, of course, if you don't need it in your UI. And then I will ask the chatbot to create the portfolio, kind of investment portfolio, what companies are good enough to be invested in. That's another action for the agent, and it creates the portfolio. That's the next answer. And the next thing, I ask the bot to take the summary and to take the portfolio and to put all of this into email and send it to my email address. That's what I ask it to do. And then it will send it to my email, and just example what it can do. Okay. And and then I will show you how it's realized, how it's implemented in a console. And from model perspective, that's also Claude 3. Here basically I can use any other model, text-to-text model, because it's English, and it's pretty easy task. So yeah, that's it. And how it's done in a web console. So that's the web console in the Bedrock. You go to a knowledge base. I already skipped the step when I put the data into the S3. So data already in the S3. So that's the data source when the data is. And the database is Amazon OpenSearch Serverless. And I did it all completely through the UI console. Of course, you can do it through the API, but in my case, for visual purposes, that's in the console. That's the agent. You can check what agent doing by looking into the action group. Action group, that's basically what agent can do. And in agent group, you have a link to your Lambda, and then it's interesting to look into Lambda. This JSON, that's the schema, how your agent interacts with Lambda. That's input and output parameters, which you describe in this way, using the JSON schema. And then I'll show you the Lambda code, but it's super easy, super straightforward. To be honest, nothing specific there. I just want to show you that you don't need to know something super specific to use agents in a Bedrock. That's the code source for this one. First of all, I have some little synthetic database with implicit, that's not even a database, it's just the strings implicit in Lambda code. And here we have, for each of 3 methods for my agent, I have a method to get the data from knowledge base, create the portfolio, and send the email. And for all 3 of them, I had a procedure in Lambda. That's it. As you can see, nothing super complicated. Another example. I don't have any more architecture diagrams, but I have some more fancy use cases. This time about images. And this one may be particularly interested for those who work in marketing, in content creation, and in retail business. So what's the idea? You have a picture, and you would like to change something on the picture, but not the whole picture completely, but some parts of this picture. And you can use the technique which we call image masking. You can put a mask, this figures, black figures on the video, that's the mask which I use. You can use the mask, or you can use just normal text prompt. Of course, there are certain requirements how this mask should be created. It should be the same resolution as the original image. It should have the certain, let's say, image format, but that's still manageable to do. And then you have an option what kind of changes to image you would like to do. You can do in painting or out painting. You'll understand the difference in a second. And then I just describe what exactly I'd like to do with the image. I put a mask on the image for the picture and for this, whatever it's called in English, chair. In Russian we have a word taburetka, so chair. And it should be a picture of sunset and a nice kitty instead of chair. And that's the Titan image generator. And that's the in painting. And for the out painting, I'll ask the model to change the background. Instead of this boring table, I'll ask to replace it with a nice, cozy room with fireplace. By the way, all the UI which you see now, it's kind of custom, super easy UI made in a Streamlit. Streamlit, that's the popular Python library. And the goal of the demo not to show you some fancy UI, just for the demonstration purposes. So that's the in painting, out painting. And one more example, let's say you don't want to create these masks. That's too complicated for you. This rectangles, some other freaky figures. You just would like to type in and set the model. I would like to replace this object to this one. And you basically can do this. So I just type in object to keep car. And I would like to put this car on the mountain road. And you, as you can see, you also have some kind of a switcher here, operating mode, default and the precise, quite interesting one. If you choose a default, then the model will try to do a little bit additional drawing to more organically embed your object into new picture. Let's say if you have flowers in the vase and you pick the default, then the model will draw additional flowers to make it more as the model thinks beautier. But if you pick the precise, then no changes to original object, just as it is into new background. And with the mountains, it looks quite good, I think. You may have impression now that all these use cases are quite far from real productional usage. And that's more like marketing materials to be presented on the stage, but actually not. You're wrong. And I have a short video from, let's skip this part. I have a short video from Amazon Ads, because Amazon Ads, that's our branch, which works with a customer who needs some help with advertisements from Amazon, retail Amazon, first of all. And they implemented same goal, same, let's say, thing without painting and make it available for external customers. And you can see how it works. And the video also has a little bit of music. I know that you were sitting for the whole day, so you can move your body a little bit if you want to. So. That's how it's done in Amazon Ads. And you can do the same thing for your business as well. And last but not least, if you would like to try all these use cases, most of these use cases by yourself, and you would like to get a code examples and step-by-step instructions, follow this QR code, and it leads to a workshop with step-by-step instructions, as I said, and the code examples as well. You can do it in your own accounts. It shouldn't be too expensive for you. And if you think that's interesting, I encourage you to try. From my side, that's it. I'm more than happy. Thank you. I'm more than happy to answer your questions now, and please do not leave the room immediately because we have a quiz after this one, which is more interesting.
Okay, so let's start from this row.
Thanks for your presentation. It was interesting. So my first question is, I have probably 2 or more questions. The first question is that you said that most of the models are text-to-text, but Claude can take an input as an image. Yes. So what about the output? Can we generate some text with an image using one of the models?
Let me rephrase the question. You would like to put the image in the model and then get a description of the image?
Just a prompt, like saying, I want something, and it gives kind of a post with an image and the text, relevant text.
To convert text to image, you can use, first of all, Stability AI family. That's the well-known Stability Diffusion model. I think the most popular now called Stable Diffusion XL, SDXL. And it works perfectly fine with this type of task you're interested in. Or you can use Titan Image Generator. I encourage you to test both and decide which works better for you.
I meant more about text plus an image. So it's like if you can...
Together.
Yeah.
Still possible with the Claude, let's say. You can do a combining prompt, text, and image. That's what I show you, by the way, in the demo, because I put the photo and then asked what's on the photo.
Yeah,
that's also possible. And even further, that's even possible to put the architecture diagram in the model. And most probably, it will correctly identify the architecture structure and give you a text definition, what's going on in this architecture diagram.
Okay, and the second question is probably under the hood, when you enter some text in Kazakh or Uzbek, probably it's using some kind of translational tool.
No.
So the cost is for English and Kazakh, Uzbek is the same?
That's the same, but cost actually depends on the number of tokens. And Claude, I showed you the Claude. Claude is Claude pricing based on the price for 1,000 input and output tokens. And the thing is that tokenizer, that's something which splits your prompt into tokens, is completely confidential in case of the Anthropic. And they do not share it with us. And for the simplicity, we just think that one word is one topic. But how it works from deep inside, nobody knows except Anthropic.
But Turkic languages are agglutinative, so one word can mean like several words in English. So do you mean that Kazakh or Uzbek words?
But the price doesn't depend on the language.
Okay.
It's the same. It's only based on number of tokens.
Thanks.
Thank you for the presentation. My first question is about embeddings. Is it the same for all models, or should we use specific embeddings for specific models?
There is no such restrictions that if, let's say, you decide to use Claude for question answering, then you need to use this special embedding model. You can use Titan embedding, you can use Cohere embedding, whatever works better for you for your use case.
Okay, I got it. So second question is about, you mentioned prompt engineering, RAG, fine-tuning, but is it possible to do adapt learning? I mean, add warper weights, and we don't touch LLM models, but add more weights and that kind of do our task for specific case.
That's also possible. Changing the weights is the part of fine-tuning and continuous pre-training. It's just kind of hidden inside. When you set up the training job, you provide a new training data set, and then you can adjust the weights a little bit as well. And also, if you say would like to train your model completely from scratch, or you would like to change the weights and do not provide your training data set, you can use a different service from Amazon. It's called SageMaker, which allows you to do the full cycle data science job.
And the third question is about vector database. Should we use specific one, or we can have options there?
I would personally recommend open source serverless because it just saves your time in terms of integration, but apart from this, any.
Okay, last question is about quantization. Is it possible in Bedrock?
Sorry, what's possible?
Quantization. I mean, if it's 32 float, we convert it to 16 float, and I mean, it would be.
I think no. At least I never did it before.
Okay.
I never heard about it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for the talk. Small question about security. You mentioned for fine-tuning and for continuous learning, it's data not so secure because they're stored in Amazon, but as I understand, they're under control of my account still, so it's not shared with other accounts, right?
Exactly. So let me repeat this part. When you use your data for just prompting, no matter how you use it, you put it into initial prompt or you put it into knowledge database, this data is not used for training purposes to improve the quality of the model out of the box. But if you decide to create the custom entity of the model, then you can initiate the training job, no matter which one, fine-tuning or pre-training, continuous pre-training. Then you kind of explicitly provide the data for the training job, and it is used for the training, but to train and to improve the quality only of your personal, private instance of the model.
Thanks.
All right. Any other questions? No? One last? Okay. Yes, please.
So out of the box, I'm not a prompt engineer or something, just back in there. So I just wanted to ask, can it give like right answers to mathematical questions like 1 + 1 or 2 multiplied by 2? Might be a silly question.
That's super funny.
Because ChatGPT doesn't know it.
I can answer your question because I have personal experience. My older son, he's in 4th grade right now in a German school. And I'd like to train him additionally in certain mathematician equations. And I was too lazy to write them down by myself, so I asked Claude to write them down, and then, of course, to provide the answers. And basically, my son was better than the Claude.
Hi. What's the future of Amazon Bedrock? Is there any enhancements we can expect to see? It's like spoiler, but if it's okay for you.
The thing is that we do not speak about roadmap publicly. So there is the roadmap and the whole product managers team. And I think the future of the Bedrock as bright as possible because company heavily invest in it. And I see that every month there is new model coming into the library. Let's say last month it was Llama 3. The months before it was Claude 3. We have several new features introduced this month as well. That's so-called Bedrock Studio to simplify developer experience when they try to create a GenAI app from the model. So that's pretty intense and continuous development, but what's exactly awaiting us ahead, I just cannot share because it's confidential.
Okay. Well, Aleksandr Bernadskii, please. Yeah. Thank you.